In this lesson, we are going to learn about what joins are, why we need them, and how to use one kind of join, that is inner joins. Okay? So, in organizations, there would be huge amount of data. All the data cannot be stored in one single table, and it would be very difficult to read, understand, and analyze that huge data in just one table. Hence, the information is available in different tables which are related with each other with some information. Now, when we need some data from different tables, we will need the help of joins. The join clause is used to combine one or more rows from two or more tables based on a related column between them. There are different types of joins which we will cover in subsequent videos. Let's explore inner joins in this lesson. Suppose we have two data tables. Inner join is used to fetch or return records that have matching values in both tables. This will be clear with an example. Let's see two tables from our search engine case study. Consider these two tables. You are already familiar with them, right? Suppose you would like to fetch the matching records in both tables based on user ID, where we can accomplish this with inner join. Let's see how we will get the output. Okay. Let's see the first value of the user ID in user activity table. It's 1. Does it match with the user ID in user table? Yes, it does match, right? It is there in your user table as well. Hence, we add these outputs in our these values in our output. So this is how your output values would be added, both from user activity as well as the user table based on user ID column. These are the columns that you would see in your output, right? Where you will see user ID, user language, user country, and user city coming from user table. Then again, you have user ID, query ID, user query, pages showed, pages clicked, engagement. This is coming from your user activity table, right? Let's continue. Let's see the second value of the user ID in user activity table. It's 2. Does it match with the user ID in user table? Yes, right here, right? We have this. Hence, we add these values in our output. Again, output would be on the same lines like the previous one, and we are having the details from both user and user activity table on user ID column. Moving on, let's see the third value of user activity, user ID. Since it's 1, we already know that we had a match earlier. So indeed, this value will also appear in our output with the user table info repeating. This is the output that you will have, the third row, which you can see in the output. The user information is getting repeated, that is user ID, user language, user country, and user city. This is getting repetitive, but if you see this user has a different query ID, means for this entry, you have a different query ID, you have a different user query, and all those things are different. But the user information remains same. Finally, let's check the last user ID in user activity. It's 3. Does it match with the user ID in user table? Yes, it does. It is right over here, right? Therefore, we add these values in our output. Overall, we get this output with 4 rows of matched data. Let's write the code for this problem together. Okay. So, the first part of the problem asks us to fetch the matching records in both of our input table. What we have over here is to fetch the matching records in user and user activity tables based on the common column, that is user ID. What we are going to do over here is, as usual, we will start with select star. It will select all your columns and all your rows. And when we do select star in the join thing, it will select all the observations from both the tables which you are joining. Okay. And note that we give alias name to the table so that it becomes easy for us to read and type the queries. Alias name are again temporary names and are only valid for this particular query. It is not stored anywhere. It is not changing the name of the table. It is just for this query. It is like a pet name or a nickname that you are giving to the table. For user, we write as U, and user activity we write as UA. Generally, what we follow is that whatever is the first letter or the first three letters of the table that are given as the alias name. Over here, it is user, so U. User activity, I'm taking UA. Both the names, I'm taking first letter, first initial of that. We perform an inner join between these two to fetch the matching records between both our tables. But we also need to specify the condition. What are we matching based on, right? We are joining it on user ID, on u.user ID equal to ua.user ID. So what this condition gives you that whenever the user ID is equal, it means that is the matched record. Give me the output based on that. So now let's see this code in Metabase. Okay, let's first see the user table as usual that we do. User table. So what we will write is select star to select all the rows from which table? User table. Let's execute this query and we got the output. What is the output? We have 4 columns, 3 rows, which tells the user ID, user language, user country, and user city. So we have this, which is nothing but the demographic information of the user. Now let's see the user activity table also, because these are the 2 tables that we are going to join, right? It is always good to have a look at the table before you write your actual query or solve the problem, unless you are very well versed with each and every table. So select star from user activity. This is the table that we have, right? Select star, it will select all the observations as well as all the columns over here. We are not filtering on any condition. We have 4 rows, 6 columns, which give you information about the user ID, query, page, and engagement value and all that. Great. So we have seen the tables. You guys are pretty much familiar with both of them, but still we have gone through this. Now let's solve our problem. And what does the problem say? What is the problem that we are trying to solve? We are trying to solve matching records of user and user activity based on user ID, correct? This is what we are trying to get. How to write this? We have just now seen the code. Let's write it again. Got it? We got 4 rows as the output. If you see, these first 4 columns are from the user table because we have mentioned first table as the user table, followed by rest of the 6 columns which are from user activity, as that is the second table after join. All the 10 columns are coming over here, and since we are having the match for each and every user ID in user table with user activity table, right? Awesome. So we are done with this. We can also use inner join and then filter data based on matching values, right? Over here, we have the output based on fetching the matching records in user and user activity tables based on user ID. What if a problem is modified and also filter data after the inner join is mentioned, like to include only American users? That is your filter criteria. Possible, right? In other words, the output should only return the highlighted rows as these have user country equal to USA. Can you figure out the code for this? Take a moment to write down the SQL query. Pause the video. Once you are done, please proceed. Alright, here's the code. If you see the first part of the problem, what we are doing over here, fetch the matching records in user and user activity table based on user ID, correct? This is asking us to perform the inner join to return the matching values for both tables. So what we got as the query over here, select star from user as U inner join user activity as UA, the joining column is on u.user_id is equals to ua.user_id. It is the same code that we have just now practiced, right? However, the second part of the question asks us to filter the output to include only American users. If you guessed that we needed to use where clause, you are absolutely right, right? Here's the code we need to add. What is the code? Where, which is for filtering, u.user country, because user country is there in user table and the alias for that is u. That's why u.user_country is equals to USA. Okay? Great. Let's verify this code on Metabase. So what we are trying to achieve over here, same thing, right? We need to do is so let's write this. Code is very similar to the previous one. Everything remains same. We just need to add a filter over here. And what is that filter? That filter is based on the country. So let's quickly write this piece of code. Where u dot, because alias for user table is u dot user underscore country is equals to, and I want an exact match, right? USA. So that's why we are giving complete thing with equal to done. And it is giving us the two results or two output rows that we expected. So the result is as per the expectation. It is giving us 10 columns and 2 rows. If you see, the country for both the users is USA. Perfect. We get the desired output. Now, let's combine multiple columns from the data tables using inner join. Consider these two tables again. Your new problem asks you to fetch the user city and query ID of the matching record. From which two tables? User and user activity. And which column we are joining it on? User ID, right? Okay. That is, suppose you want to fetch the matching records in both tables based on user ID. But this retrieved data should only be list of user city and query ID. Currently, we were getting 10 columns. Right now, we just need user city and query ID details. What should the output be? So, originally, with an inner join, which combined all related data from two tables, we had this output, which I just now mentioned, 10 columns, right? However, our problem asks us to retrieve data of user city and query ID only on the basis of user ID match. This is straightforward selecting two columns. That is, the output should only return these two highlighted columns. Let's observe the code to get the solution. Can you figure out how to write it? I'll give you a hint, okay? It is the same code as the first problem with only change in the select statement. So here's the code. I've altered the select part. Can you see this? We are selecting only these two columns. Which are those two columns? User city from user table and query ID from user activity. Why I have mentioned u.user_city and ua.query ID? Because these are the alias names, right? Then we normally perform the inner join of user and user activity table. Lastly, we match on the basis of user ID. Okay? So let's run this on Metabase. So let's do this matching. So what we are going to do is matching based on user ID and retrieving user city and query ID. This is what we want to do. And query ID. That's all that we want to do. Everything remains same. No change. Just a small change is there. Instead of giving select star, we are going to mention which column we want. Correct? Let's execute this. And we got the desired output with 4 rows, but only 2 columns that we are getting.